Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're doing a radio replacement in this Honda Accord Crosstour. This also would be very similar, if not identical, to the regular Accord. This model Accord does actually not have the navigation system, it just has the basic standard system. But this install would be very similar if you also have the factory nav. Now what we're going to do is show you how to remove this factory radio. We're going to go ahead and head to the bench, get everything reassembled with the new kit and radio we're putting in, and we're going to get it all reassembled here back in the dash. Now the first thing we need to do is go ahead and get this out. Now it'd be always smart to remove any discs that you have remaining in the system. There's a couple of layers in order to get this out. We have to remove kind of the cup holder area, this pocket to get to screws. These trim panels on each side of the radio also have to come out, and then there's two screws up underneath securing the radio as well. Once those all are out, then the rest of the radio itself is just held on with clips. So we have a panel tool, we have a Phillips screwdriver, we have an 8mm little screwdriver here as well, and I also have a drill in my lap just in case we need a little bit more leverage. So the first thing we need to do here in the screen, so we have our panel tool, but you can also just use your fingers. We need to go ahead and pop this guy on out. Kind of get up underneath here. All right, all one piece here. Pulling this up, go ahead and disconnect your harnesses if you're equipped with these seat warmers. If you don't have seat warmers, you won't have that, but you will have a little cigarette lighter here. Press in that tab, sit that out of the way. You don't want that broken at all. Now the next thing here, you're gonna have two Phillips screws just off here in camera. Once you've done that, you'll see that this moves a little bit. Open up the pocket, and up underneath, if you fill with your fingers, there's two more screws. So 4 screws in total, holding this pocket in. After those screws are removed, this pocket's gonna come free to give us a little bit more space. Pull that on back. Okay, remove the key. And then finally here, you look way up underneath, and we're gonna grab either a Phillips, or if you have it even better, an 8mm socket here. The reason why I'd use a socket is because they are tight, and it would be easy to strip them out. There's one. Again, they're straight up, and there's 2 of them on each side. And they're different than the other ones that you've removed. There's the other one. Okay, with those 2 screws removed, at this point, we're just about ready to start prying, but there's 2 screws underneath these panels. So drop your glove box down, get yourself a panel tool, and just kind of start working this out. Just like that. Just all held on with clips here. That up out of the way. This one as well. Just like that. These are great because they don't scratch the plastic. And finally here, 2 more Phillips. Tight fit, very tight fit. Now the important thing is at this point with your airbag light, you don't want to disconnect the harness that goes to the light and then turn on the key, because what that's going to do is strip the light up on the dash, and you'll have to go to the dealer to get that cleared. And just disconnect each harness. Each harness has a little tab, you just push it down and it's going to pop free. Okay, there we are. All right, with the stereo out, that's about as far as we can go at this point in the car. Let's head over to the dash, get the new wiring kit assembled with our Pioneer wiring kit, the dash kit assembled as well. All the odds and ends with accessories here. Head back to the car and get it installed.
Provo Beats Audio Installation Channel is sponsored by NVX and Sonic Electronics. Get 10% off all speakers, amplifiers, wiring kits, and more with coupon code PBAI at NVX. Also get 5% off all car audio components at Sonic Electronics with coupon code ProvoBeast.
Okay, here at the bench we got our parts all pulled together here. Now the radio we've chose to install is the AVH 2400 NEX by Pioneer. This does Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it's wired. We have, for steering wheel controls, we're going to with the SWI-RC by PAC. We have a micro bypass for a Pioneer, so we can access some settings in the Pioneer system, as well as video while in motion. We're using an antenna adapter. It's the Honda 40-HD10. Our main wiring harness here, whether you have the navigation or not, it's the same. It's the using the Metra 70-1730 wiring harness. And then we also have a aux USB 3.0 flush mount adapter that we're going to use so we can access Android Auto and Apple CarPlay through a reliable USB connection. The dash kit we're going with is the Atlas Gray version of this. It's the Scosche HA1707DCDGB. This specific kit is not for navigation. It's only for the non-Nav units. If you have the navigation, we'll throw in the description the part number to that one. And finally, in a separate video, we're going to actually do a backup camera, and we're going to show you what that looks like in that video later on. We'll have a link down in the description as soon as that video becomes available. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull our harness out, and we'll solder it up to our harness from the Pioneer and get our kit assembled using most of the parts off the factory radio. Let's get started. Alright, so we got our harnesses here. This is the Pioneer. This is our Honda Accord adapter. Now you notice that there are RCAs hanging off this adapter. You need to make sure you have a radio that has RCA pre-outs or the RCA output connections on the back of the radio. Because this has the factory amplifier, it requires a low level signal and not speaker level signal. So you won't even use your white, gray, green, and purple wires. And we're also not using the mute, so we're going to cap those off. And all you're going to do is match these other ones. And the car, or the factory amplifier, is going to receive its signal through these ones. So white is your front left, front right, rear left, rear right. And those will plug into the back of the radio. Now also, keep in mind that this little harness also came here. This is for your factory subwoofer, so ensure that you hook this one up. This will go to the sub output on the back of the radio as well, and that just connects into one of the harnesses that we disconnected in the car. Now besides those, we also have our antenna harness here. Now this one plugs into the AM FM on the back of the radio, and this plugs into the car. You notice there's this blue wire hanging off. Your factory antenna has an amplifier built in to boost the signal. If you don't hook this blue wire up, you'll have terrible quality in the reception here. So we're actually just going to go ahead and tie that into the red wire, and you'll see how we do that. But that will essentially receive power whenever the key is on. So we'll just twist those together when we wire them up. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to go ahead and solder and heat shrink. We're going to put our tubes at the base of all our connections, get our connections all soldered up, and then shrink the tubes so we have a nice good seal. But essentially here it's just color for color. So once we do that, get our nice and hot soldering iron, and we're going to just go ahead and solder up that connection so it's nice and solid. Then once that cools, we'll move the heat shrink up and over the connection and shrink that down with a heat gun. Okay, so we got everything put together here. We soldered up each connection. Now kind of going through our connections, we have a couple of grounds all tied in here. First ground, our micro bypass requires a ground, so we twisted that in there. And on this end, we have the ground of the harness. But also we have another ground that's off here
and along with same thing with the red wire into power. This power and ground will power our steering wheel control module. It requires power and ground there. So we got that hooked up, and that's why we have these leads hanging off. We'll show you what that looks like in just a second, because there's a couple other connections associated with this. And then, like I said before, we went ahead and tied our power antenna amplifier turn-on wire into the red. And then again, on this end, with the red on the other side, one goes to the main harness, but this one goes to the control module for the steering wheel controls. Our blue-white wire, because this has the factory amplifier, you got to hook that up on the harness side. So from the Pioneer blue-white to the harness, I added just another little blue wire here, and my purpose is down the road if we had an amplifier, this will be out and accessible. And our micro bypass also needs that blue-white wire to trigger it to work, so we hook that up. Our light green wire here, that's our parking brake wire, and we hooked our micro bypass into that. And then orange white is our illumination dimmer, and we hooked that up as well. That's about it, besides our power wire, which is that solid yellow. At this time, let's go ahead and move our heat shrink up and over our connections here and shrink them down with the heat gun, and then we're going to tape up our harness with some Tessa tape to make it look factory. Okay, so we got our harness all taped up. This end plugs into our Pioneer. We have our little bypass relay just hanging off here. This end plugs into the car. Now, remember, I have our, at one point if we had an amplifier, got to turn on just hanging off there. I extended our purple-white wire, which is the backup camera trigger wire for the radio, just so it's long enough that when we add our backup camera, that we can easily connect our trigger wire into that. These RCAs will go into the back of the radio here. I taped this little T off. Remember, that's our antenna plug here, and this end will go to the back of the radio for AM/FM. That's power and ground to operate and power up the steering wheel control module, and that came with the SWIRC, which plugs into there. And out of all these wires, all you need is the solid white wire, and then the other ground that's available in the harness. These ones will have to plug into the main harness. Unfortunately, our adapter here doesn't have those connections in the harness, so we're going to have to tap those in manually into the actual harness itself, and we'll show you what that looks like later. At this point, let's go ahead and set our steering wheel control module. You have two on this side. For a Pioneer, it says to set it to 7, so we went ahead and did that before we even connected to power. Alright, so at this time, because we're done with the harness here to a certain extent, we're going to finish taping up this side, but we're going to put this aside and now begin working on our dash kit. We're ready to start working on the kit. We have elements in the factory radio that we need to unscrew and bolt into the new dash kit that is painted the same. The finish is actually really nice. It matches almost identically. So we have to route the vents, the airbag and hazard switch, as well as the HVAC controls that fill this area here. And then we have the brackets that will support the aftermarket radio. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we got everything transferred over from the factory radio to our aftermarket one. Just word of advice: as you assemble the kit, be sure to do the vents first, And even before you do the vents, you could even pop out the hazard switch and airbag light. Get those in first, because then the HVAC controls, they actually share some screws, and it fits best. These go in second after your AC vents have already been installed. Don't forget to also include the bottom piece that came off the factory radio as well. At this point, this is all done and ready to be installed. Let's go ahead and head back to the car and begin running all our cables, connecting our harnesses, installing the Bluetooth mic, and finishing up this install. Okay, so we're back in the car getting ready to connect our harness here. Now, the two wires that you need is pin 16, which is this pink wire. And what we did is we soldered our white wire into it. And then we need pin 5, which is your ground. And we soldered the extra ground that came with our SWIRC, and we grounded it into that brown wire as well. We're going to go ahead and tape up those connections and just relume the harness with some tested tape. And it's not quite there yet. We'll need to program our steering wheel controls using the procedure provided by the instructions there by PAC. Now, just in case, we actually popped our hazard switch and our airbag light back out of our new kit, plugged it in here in case we do need to cycle on the key. We're not going to trip the airbag light by accident. With that now wired in, at this time, what we're going to do is tape up our connections, get everything reassembled and installed, and start programming our steering wheel controls. Okay, so we taped up our connections. We're ready to program our steering wheel controls. Remember, we hooked up our antenna wire. We also plugged in our subwoofer harness here. That also came with our Metro wiring kit. That's good. We ran an aux and USB, and we actually mounted one in the center console. We'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Since the center console's out, it was easy to do so. And then we got our backup camera ready. Again, we'll show you exactly what that looks like in a different video. We'll have a link in the description once that video is available. We need to hook up our connections to our radio. Now, we haven't hooked in the actual brain box to the steering wheel control until we're totally ready to begin programming. Okay, so it's time to start programming this. And I have on my left-hand side, just out of the frame here, my laptop with the instructions, and I'll walk you through the process. So we're going to press and hold the programming button so we can put it in programming as we turn on the ignition. It needs to be on version 3, so we'll turn it, so hold down the button, turn it on. 1000, 2, 1000, 3, 1000, release. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to wait. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So what we've done now is basically told the unit that we're connected into a Honda. Remember, the switch on the side indicates the radio. Now, at this point, we need to program our steering wheel controls. So we go to our next step. So at this time, we need to press the program button so the LED turns on, and then release the button. So we're going to do volume up, volume down, and then skip. We'll just hit mute by pressing the button. Preset up, preset down, source, track up, track down, band skip, phone menu, answer call, end call, voice activation, hold. Okay, that's it. Everything's successfully programmed here. At this time, let's go ahead and pull this back out, put our
switch back in here, then officially everything needs to just be reconnected, and we can begin working the kit back into the dash. Okay, radio is in. Carplay is working great. We just need to go ahead and put the screws in. We made sure everything was working. We went ahead and put that aux and USB input on the inside. There's a little flush mount adapter. We just cut a 1-inch hole, and we ran our aux and USB and plugged it on the back of the radio, just so it's easily accessible there. And really, that's it. Our mic's working. We put our mic up here and ran it up and down the pillar, through the gauge cluster, and then back to the radio as well. Okay, all reassembled. Looking really nice and clean. Worked out really, really nicely. We do turn these on. Now it won't display the radio information anymore. If you have any questions on what we did here, just go and post a comment below. Thanks guys for watching. Again, remember we're doing a backup camera on this, so check the link in the description. We'll have that available to you as soon as that video is up. And be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.